All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Shrink Chats. I'm Monica Burton.
I'm Annette Reiter, and today we're here with David Swindall. He's also a licensed marriage family therapist, and he runs some of the state-mandated groups for domestic violence and anger management and, stress reduction. So we're going to start this off with hot and heavy, talking about stress reduction and how important it is and how critical it is to transforming behavior, transforming your words. So tell us a little bit about what you do, David.
Well, I like what you just said. I read an article in Sunday's paper about dentists having clients who come to their practice maybe once a week, one patient a week, grinding their teeth. And now with this COVID-19 and the stress, people are grinding their teeth and they get one or two patients a day.
Bad.
And so one of the things that I do with all my clients and my groups is to do a stress reduction meditation. I call it meditation. It's a relaxation exercise. Mm-hmm. And actually I've been doing it for probably about 2 years now. I would introduce it occasionally, but I found and got such good feedback on it. And it's a systematic, decent, a relaxation exercise, meditation, focusing on your breath, relaxing. And there's something very powerful about your breath. I had a woman call me up last Saturday. I've been seeing her and her husband. And she said, I'm just having such stress. Do you see patients on the weekend? I said, no, I'm on my way to get my allergy shot so I can talk to you. So I said, focus on your breath. When your mind goes to all these things, bring your attention back to your breath. It's very simple, but hard to do. Focus on your breath. Focus on your breath. When you concentrate on your breath, that is meditation. And you can do that whether you're washing the dishes, whether you're driving your car, whatever you're doing, that becomes meditation if you do it with attention. Mm-hmm. And so relaxing, and I have people put their hand on their heart and their abdomen. And there's something very soothing about that. It's like giving yourself a hug. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one of the things I found out a few years ago is I do reverse breathing. And reverse breathing is when you breathe in, your belly goes in. And that's not the way it's supposed to happen. And so when you breathe in, your belly goes out. And when you exhale, your belly goes in. Mm-hmm. And the diaphragm, is one of the largest muscles in the body. It is the largest muscle in the body. Oh, it's huge. And so when you breathe in, those bellows open up. And when you exhale, they close. And I like to talk about that as the rhythm of life. We expand and we contract. We take in what we need. We let go of what we need. Mm-hmm. And that goes throughout our life. So that relaxation helps with reducing stress. Another thing that I like is taking your arms and just bringing them down, soothing yourself. Helps people sleep. I've had people tell me that they haven't been able to sleep, and when I tell them this, it will help them go to sleep. It's very relaxing.
For our listeners out there, David's, kind of crossing his arms around his chest and putting them on his shoulders, and then kind of slowly rolling your arms down, your hands down each of your arms, because, for the podcast, people can't see you, but you can look us up at YouTube and see what David's doing.
That's right.
I feel like your buttery voice is about to put Monica and I into such a deep relaxation, we might not be able to do the podcast.
Well.
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
So we're going to be airing this show first in October, and October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And one of the reasons why we want to do on the show is because you do work with that population. And even these techniques that you've just taught us, I can already begin to see, if we start to implement some of these strategies before the point we get into fight or flight in our relationships, it helps bring us back to center and grounding instead of explosivity. And so I'm just kind of thinking about, when you're in groups and talking to, you work with men primarily and couples,
Yes.
kind of talking to them about, how to get to that point of, instead of escalation and explosiveness, how to center, ground, take a step back, take a deep breath, calm yourself.
The concept that I like is you can't go from negative to positive in one movement.
Right.
I like to talk to people about going to neutral,
Mhm.
and then you can go to the positive. And change takes place incrementally. So you go, and so once again, doing the breath work, you go to neutral. You get more relaxed, you go to that neutral zone. And that's where body and mind are in balance. Many years ago, my wife said to me, I just can't take it. You're so awful in the morning. You're just terrible. And I said, well, I'm not a morning person. She said, well, I can't tell you. I go to work and thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do with that guy. And then I come home and you're your sweet, wonderful self. But in the morning, you're terrible. And I thought, well, I'm not a morning person, but I don't have to be irritable and negative in the morning. I'll just go to neutral. So that's 20 years ago, I decided to go to neutral. And so I wasn't irritable. I wasn't cheerful. I was just neutral. And now morning is one of my best times. I love waking up and going for a walk and having a cup of coffee with my wife, having breakfast. It's a wonderful opportunity. But I couldn't go from negative to positive. I
Right.
had to go to neutral. And I like that idea of going to neutral as a way to counter that amygdala. Stephen Stosny calls it the toddler brain.
Yeah.
And, and overshadows and takes over the adult brain. I like to say that the little almond-shaped part of the back of the brain, back part of the brain stem, is the smoke detector of the body. And it cannot tell the difference between burnt toast and a house on fire. It reacts as if, you've attacked me, you've criticized me, my house is on fire. And Thich Nhat Hanh says, when our house is on fire, we want to go after the arsonist who set our house on fire rather than putting the fire out in our own house. Because if you go after the arsonist, your house will burn down. So I like that idea of when I get triggered, when I get activated, I could calm myself down and then try to understand what the other person was saying and needing. Marshall Rosenberg said that anger is a tragic expression of an unmet need. And so if I'm angry, I have to ask myself, what was the need that I have? When my partner is angry with me, what is her need or his need? In my case, my wife. What is the need that is behind that?
Say that again. Anger is a tragic I didn't hear you quite well enough.
Anger is a tragic expression of an unmet need. And that just changes the way to think about anger. If I think about it, I'm experiencing, and part of it is being able to identify what are my sensations. A lot of men are not tuned into their body. I'll ask my clients, men and women, what was that like? What are you experiencing in your body right now? You mean, what am I thinking? No. What are you experiencing in your body? What are the sensations? And they're not tuned. So part of that relaxation exercise is becoming aware and observing myself, observing the sensations.
When you get to neutral, for me, I like to use the word choice. If I'm in my negative, I'm without choice because I'm doing what your amygdala, to take your terms, your amygdala is responding to, the house is burning down, even though it's not.
That's right.
And so if I get to neutral, then I can start to see that, it's just a toaster. And it's just burnt toast and it's going to happen again. So let's calm down. And But if I don't get to neutral, I have no free will.
That's right.
Mhm.
And so
Right.
when I'm in that balance, and so what I do with groups and clients is practice this several times a day so that that neurological pathway is being strengthened. And when I'm in that state of relaxation, you can't be stressed and relaxed at the same time.
Right.
And
Mhm.
so when I go to that neutral zone, I'm relaxed. And when I'm relaxed, then the adult brain is more available.
Mhm.
And
Right.
when I have practiced that and that's now available, I have a new way to operate and I have no choices. And when I have an option and I make that option, then I'm no longer trapped.
Right.
Right.
Dr. Gottman talks about in one of his books, What Makes Love Last, he talks about the 3 boxes in relationships: the nice box, the nasty box, and the neutral box.
Was he right?
And what he says is we want to strive for the neutral box in our relationships. And what happens if we stay caught in the expectation of I have to be in this nice box, or we're in this nasty box and we got to get right to the nice box, it actually, we crumble. And the kind of decisions that we make when we're in the nasty box are really those impulsive decisions that you guys were talking about, and really based out of like fight or flight. And so it's, he talks about we really want to strive for more neutral.
That's right. Well, how about that? Well, I didn't know that, but
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, because when we're in the nasty box, to use Gottman's term, that's when folks get into difficulty and it really hurts the relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons I think that a lot of folks deny and rationalize and blame other people is because at the deepest level, they have shame and guilt
Mm-hmm.
at that unconscious level. And I don't want to accept that. And so I want to blame you. I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't have done what you did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Terry Real talks about it in the New Rules of Marriage, and he would call this like that, hyper reactivity, that righteousness. And if you get too right in your head, then someone else has to be wrong, because that starts to go to positive and negative, black or white, rather than that neutral that we're talking, and calming yourself down. And I love that concept. I talk a lot about how therapy, really good therapy, starts to open up neurological pathways that seem to have gotten too tight or too narrow, or maybe you never had, right?
That's right.
So
And so a lot of people
right.
you're exactly right, have never developed that because they grew up with their body being tight and tense, and that's how they survived, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I like to use the ACE, Adverse Childhood Experience questionnaire. Those 10 questions open up and tell you how much trauma a person has had. And when I give that to couples and I can see that, I said, I can see y'all are going to have a lot of difficulty because your neurological pathways are tight, and you survived, you found each other. Now, how do we find a way to be with each other in a more loving, caring way?
Right.
And that takes practice, compassion. I like the word compassion. To
Mm-hmm.
be able to, I'm suffering. I
Mm-hmm.
see you're suffering. And when
Right.
we're in a compassionate state, we're not blaming or attacking. I like this idea that Terry Real talks about the self-righteous, the entitled, grandiosity.
Right. Grandiosity. Yeah.
Grandiosity. And us therapists, we're real good at helping people who are depressed and sad and all that stuff. But how do we deal with people who have grandiosity? They don't have any trouble. You're the problem.
Right. Yeah. You're the problem. Including you, my therapist, and my partner who told me here. Right.
Yeah, I saw a couple this week. They they saw me about 3 years ago, and they have been to 2 other therapists since me. And they come, those therapists, they just don't know what they're doing. They just, all they did was attack me. No, we're trying to hold you accountable. Those behaviors that you're using, But it's men and women. I remember a woman sitting and her husband sitting in my office, and she was yelling at him. He was sitting on the edge of the sofa, looking up at the ceiling. And I said to her, "What are you trying to accomplish?" She said, "I want him to hear me." What do you think is happening right now? He's turning away. Yes. Is he hearing you? I don't know. Is that why you're yelling so loud? Yes. I said, I don't think it, let's check and see. What's happening with you? He said, I want to get out of here. Fight or flight.
Right.
And then I told him about when I was in Paris. My wife and I were in Paris, and I was watching television. She came out of the restroom. She said, "Why do you have the TV up so loud?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to understand what they're saying." She said, "Oh, they're speaking in French. Making it louder won't help."
Right.
You don't speak French?
Yeah. But we somehow think if we speak louder,
Mm-hmm.
that the person will get what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Gottman says soft, slow,
Mm-hmm.
low.
Mm-hmm.
Soft, slow, low.
Oh, right.
How do you
Right.
talk to a child when they're crying? Stop that crying? No. You
Mm-hmm.
hold that child. You get down on their level. You talk to them. In some ways, we have to talk to the toddler brain that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. One of the things that I've had to learn is listening to my wife in a way when I hear her as criticizing me and attacking me. It's more take it as information about how she is experiencing me. So take it as information rather than accusation.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps calm me down because I'll get a reaction. And when you walk across the street and you're in the crosswalk and a car comes by, what happens to your breath?
You hold it.
You hold
Yeah.
it. And that's what happens. What happens when somebody says to you, I love you? We release our breath. So we begin to become aware of the sensations in our body once again.
Mm-hmm.
That's the pivot thing here, becoming aware so that I can have those choices. What are some other things I can do instead of screaming and yelling, throwing things, breaking things? Part of it is changing the beliefs that when I was in therapy back in the many years ago in the 70s, my therapist had me take a bataka bat. Do y'all know what a bataka bat is?
Mm-hmm.
The little red
Yes.
bat with a
Yeah.
handle. And I was to scream and yell and hit the pillows in my therapist's office of all the people that had wronged me. And I left exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But what I was rehearsing was anger, rehearsing violence. It didn't help me figure out how to deal with folks who were upsetting me.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of a lot of people have the belief about break it and get the anger out, express it, break things, throw things, scream and yell, that somehow that's going to help our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
No. Or I get it all out so then I can come back. No. And so taking that time out is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
And if you practice that, and I like, a lot of guys will tell me, well, I do that all the time. I walk away. I say, no. That's a walking away is not a time out.
Mm-hmm.
Walking away is not a time out. Because your partner's saying,
Where are they?
where is you? And of course it activates your partner's feeling of abandonment. I don't matter. You're stupid. All those kinds of things. It's an agreed upon strategy that you both have talked about when you're sane, when you've got your right mind. And either of us can take a time out. It means I'm about to lose it. I made the mistake one time of telling my wife, you need to calm down.
That didn't work?
It didn't work. And,
Like the one thing to not say.
and what she said to me was, "Don't you ever tell me to calm down." I said, I know, I know, I know.
Mhm.
Oh, I can hear you better when you lower your voice. And because right now I'm just reacting to your anger and I can't hear what you want me to know.
Mhm.
But you have to be in your right mind to be able to do that. And
Mhm.
taking those slow, deep breaths. I've gotten so that I don't have to leave the room like I had to early in my marriage.
Mhm.
Right. You can just change the pronoun for yourself. Instead of you need to calm down in your head, if you go, every time I say you need to or you should have, if I change it to I can usually find the answer, right? Like it's not always a perfect, like I need to calm down. Maybe I wasn't that upset, but I'm starting to get upset. So if I kind of, play with I need to calm down and wonky it up a bit, I can see that, oh, this is getting to be too much for me.
That's right.
Right? And then I can own my own, I always called this like we have to find our own emotional thermostat.
That's
What's
right.
going on with me? What's my Fahrenheit right now? Am I hotter than hell or, cool and collected? What version of Annette is talking right now?
That's right.
Mhm.
That's right.
Right. And to go back to what you're saying about Gottman's soften startup, he says it's, I feel about this is what I need or this is what I would appreciate.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in the heat of the moment, if you're really getting flooded, you might not remember that whole thing, but just going back to, I need or I would appreciate or I'm feeling flooded or can we take our time out or, something like that, that it's a decision that you own that helps de-escalate instead of attack, that attack, blame, criticize, defend.
Part of it is recognizing the story that I'm telling myself.
Mm-hmm.
When you did this, the story I tell myself, and when you put it that way, already, I'd like to say that emotions are real, but they're not reality.
Perfect.
Right.
Emotions are real, but they're not reality. It's based on my interpretation of an event.
Mm-hmm.
One time my wife asked me, "Are you angry with me?" I said, "Let me think." "No. What did you observe that made you think that I was angry with you?"
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Well, you came in, you didn't speak to me, you went into the back bedroom, and you didn't come out for a long time. And,
Right.
you weren't your cheerful self and always say hello to me." I said, "Let me think about that." "Oh, I remember. When I came in, I had to go to the bathroom real bad." And
The special back room.
Right.
the bathroom was in the back bedroom. So what she observed was that I didn't speak to her. I went in and I was gone for a while.
Hmm.
And so he must be mad at me. That was an interpretation. So paying attention to our interpretation and how we view things creates our emotional response to it. So if I let my partner know, when I saw you do this, that's what it meant to me. And that's where that accusation versus information, "Oh, you're not accusing me, that's information about how you experienced me." And that makes, for me, a difference in being able to understand how my partner is reacting or how I'm reacting. Sometimes I like the acronym STOP. Stop. When I get reactive, stop. T, take 3 or 4 slow, deep breaths. O, observe my sensations, observe my interpretations, my thoughts, my perceptions about things. And then P, proceed in the best interest of myself and our relationship. STOP.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
We need to take a quick break here
Oh,
and
okay.
thank our sponsors for supporting the show. And we'll be right back. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and we have a website out there and a YouTube channel now too. Thank you very much.
We'll be right back.
Chosen by leading interventionists, doctors, and therapists, Origin's nationally accredited world-renowned addiction treatment programs provide comprehensive care for adults, including those with serious psychiatric and medical disorders. Call 844-502-HOPE to speak confidentially with an expert or visit us at originsrecovery.com to learn more.
I've had this problem.
Big problem.
I really needed
a good therapist.
And I kept searching and searching.
There are so many choices.
It's really hard to find one that has all the things on my list.
But I finally did it.
Yes. Thank you.
If you are looking for one as well,
look no further.
Here's a really good one.
Just use mine.
Use mine.
I'm very satisfied.
Definitely recommend. Problem gone.
thank you.
Monica Burton is a licensed marriage and family therapist based in St. Petersburg, Florida, with over 17 years of experience. Monica offers individual, family, and couples therapy, and during this time of COVID-19 is offering teletherapy. Monica invites you to check out her YouTube channel, where she offers great tips and advice on relationships, parenting, family health, resolving conflict, and coping with stress. Go to YouTube to find Monica Burton LMFT. There are new segments every Thursday. Or check out Monica's website at monicaburtonlmft.com.
What if you could train your brain to think healthier thoughts? Cope Notes uses daily text messages to help you do exactly that. All you need is a cell phone and a brain. To learn more and try it for yourself, visit www.copenotes.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our show, and David Swindall. And we are talking about stress reduction, and we left off talking about stop and how to really use that in our relationships. So thank you, David.
Yes, I like acronyms because the brain can hold on to those. Sometimes we may not remember all the steps of things, but if I can think stop and see that stop sign, that really helps me.
Mm-hmm.
Another acronym I like is WAIT. Why am I talking?
I like that.
Yes,
Or why am I texting? I don't know, y'all have had couples come in and bring their text. Did you see what he texted? Did you see what about what you texted to my mother? Okay.
I've got pictures of what they texted. Please read them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the problem is, of course, as a therapist, we rarely have the backstory. So we just read the words. So then it doesn't show the meaning, but sometimes that can be helpful because it's like, oh, you didn't think that was bad? And I'm like, well, the words seem okay. Like there's a misspelling. I mean, did you want me to do it for punctuation or, so, but that's where the perception, right? And the history and the trauma-informed therapy that you're talking about looks at something and senses it different than maybe somebody else will sense it.
Exactly.
Right. And the research on when you text and fight, it's actually much more volatile and harmful than looking at the person and, talking about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you might even want to add, why am I tweeting?
Well, I don't know anything about tweets, but
I have stolen your weight for years, David. I remember you saying that years ago to me. We were at a conference in Orlando and went out to dinner, and you said that, and it wasn't texting then. You just said, why am I talking? You've added the texting because I don't think people texted back then. That was that long ago.
No. Why am I texting? Why am I talking? And that's different than people who shut down, because that's the other extreme. So part of it is sometimes when I get overwhelmed, my brain is not functioning and I can't think, the words are not there. Have you ever gone over the Skyway Bridge, the Howard Franklin Bridge, and get to the top while you're talking on your telephone, on your cell phone? And it's
going to go out.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why it does that?
No.
I've got a guess, but I'll let you tell me.
I used to think it was because the signal didn't get there, but it's actually because all those towers around the bay have no obstruction, so you get too many signals.
Oh.
And so you get overwhelmed. The phone gets overwhelmed. What does it do? It shuts down.
Yeah.
And that's my definition of overwhelmed. You get too much going on and so you shut down. And so we've talked about overwhelmed and underwhelmed. So I think neutral would be just whelmed, wouldn't you think?
Mhm.
Yeah. You just need to get to neutral and just be whelmed.
Just be whelmed.
Yeah.
So one of the things, one
I
of
was
the
just
things
gonna say,
that,
we just don't talk about whelmed. I never heard that yet, but I thought, well, if you get overwhelmed or underwhelmed, what would be whelmed be like? And it just is a playful quality that helps me get more into neutral and relaxed.
sure. So one of the things you were talking about earlier is like what, when you were in therapy and hitting the pillows, kind of what you learned. And some of the things that we see is, what we learn in our childhood and regarding our response to anger, for example. And I remember I was working with incarcerated kids at one point in my career. And one of the kids said to me, the only way that I can feel relaxed or at peace is when I actually hit somebody else. And so, it's like that's his response to, okay, I feel anger, I want to feel better. And the only way I know how to do that is to hit someone, not just something, but to hit someone else.
Right.
And so, I think it's, and maybe Annette, you brought this up with like that trauma response or trauma focus is like, that's something, I know this kid growing up in the home in which he grew up in, it was just like, that was commonplace. And so when you're working with a couple now, like some of the strategies that we're talking about are absolutely important. And I can also see it's like, if my quick go-to is to hit or to be explosive, it's really how do I start to train my brain and open up those neural pathways instead of just responding to that impulsivity or that trauma, or what I learned back then is taking some time and really practicing these things, especially when we're not in the heat of the moment. So just curious, do you talk to your group about practice?
All the time. Yeah.
Rehearse.
It's a rehearsing. Just as I hear you talk about that, what I would talk to that person, the adult or the child part of that person, would say, what is it you're trying to accomplish? Think about that. When you hit that person, what are you wanting? Contact. How can you go about getting the contact in a more safe way for you and that person? So I would want to talk about how you could begin to look at the intent that may not even be conscious, that you want connection. And so being able to have that connection, let's look at that and practice that. So take those slow, deep breaths and imagine yourself hugging that part of you that needs the contact, giving care to that part.
Right.
That's right. I was working with a man who is an alcoholic, and a lot of alcoholics like to cut down on their drinking. They really don't want to stop drinking, even though they've had several DUIs and they know that their partner has told them, the doctor has told them not to drink. So I was talking to this man, and he's not ready to stop drinking. I said, okay. But he says that button, this is his word, that button that I have goes into the back part of my mind when I have several drinks. I said, well, imagine that button. What color is it? He said, well, I have several colors. I said, okay, what are they? He said, red, green, and yellow. And I said, well, what do those colors mean for you? And he said, well, red is stop, yellow is caution, green, go. I said, well, let's put them in, reverse the order a little bit. Put green, how many drinks is green? 1 or 2. What's yellow? 3. What's 4? What's red? 4. I said, now I want you to rehearse that every day, maybe 10 times a day. Just imagine that button, and you don't have to drink. Just imagine that so that you begin to get the sensations and awareness of what it would be like for you. So my guess is that if he wants to drink, and somehow people think that they can't drink, that you have to drink, then try that and let's see what happens. Because I don't know whether that'll work. Yes, one of the things that I have people do in my group is I have them write a 7th week letter. It's a 29-week program in the domestic violence program. And on the 7th week, they've been there long enough that they shouldn't be here. They're the victim. I say, no, Casa and Haven do the victim work. You're here because of your behavior. Tell me, what part of the problem are you? What behaviors did you use? And so I have them write a 7th week letter looking at the power and control we're from Duluth, Minnesota. What behaviors did you use that was intimidating? And write the letter to yourself as if your partner or former partner were writing to you about the effect, those behaviors and the effect of those behaviors on her. Yeah, last night I had a guy crying as he read his letter. And he said, and he apologized. I said, no, you don't need to apologize. You're releasing all that toxin and the stuff that your families had to endure. And another man wrote his 7th week letter, and he wrote it from his partner. And then he said, I also want to write a letter for my children to me. And that is a really powerful way, because it moves you out of that victim position into accountability and seeing the consequence, the effect, the impact of that abusive behavior on your family and on yourself. I said, how do you feel about yourself after you've done it? Oh, I feel terrible. Or I feel justified. I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't done what you did.
Yeah.
I
think maybe I just want to add a point too for listeners that might be listening in, that plenty of people have problems with alcohol and they don't hit their partners or physically harm their partners. So when I hear sometimes that it's that I've been drinking and that's why I did it, I just want to make sure that we're acknowledging that that's not true. Lots of people are alcoholics and they never hit anybody while they're intoxicated. So there still is choice there, and we don't find that the numbers don't prove that. There may be, if drinking 4 drinks a night gets you to the point that the police might be at your house, it's interesting to me, like you said, somebody having a DUI, that's not enough concern to figure out that maybe I need to change my behavior. But that speaks to a different kind of dynamic. But I just wanted to emphasize that we see some people trying to use alcohol as their excuse for their behavior.
Well, because when you do drink, it does a twofold thing. It knocks out the prefrontal cortex, the adult brain, increases the emotional reactivity. So it's a double whammy. And so you're exactly right. So I'd say if you are abusive and have an alcohol problem, you've got 2 problems.
Yeah.
A guy in group said, I stopped drinking and the relation, things got worse. I said, yes, because you were using alcohol as an excuse for that. Now you're observing what you're doing, and you still weren't skillful. So you have to be more skillful. So the question is not who's right or wrong. It's a question of who's more or less skillful. So we switch it to not you're a bad person. Those behaviors are not helpful. Then how do we develop skill? And how do you develop skill? Rehearse, practice. See yourself and imagine yourself speaking this. What's another way? One of the things that people come to us for therapy is they don't have any idea of what are the alternatives. What are some other choices? We can talk about free will, but if I don't have that option available to me, I never saw it, I never experienced it, how would I be able to choose it? It wasn't there. So now I can have choice. And part of what we as therapists do is to help model and give some new ideas. Have you thought about that? Let's try this. What would happen if you were to say this to your partner?
I was, years ago when I first started doing therapy, there was a show with, I think his name's Paul Rudd. He's a comedian. Yeah. And why can't I remember? Helen Hunt, I think, was in it as his wife. And it's called like Couplehood or something like that. And it was really cute. Maybe I can find some clips. And they did a great job of actually having fairly decent arguments as a couple on television, representing what kind of healthy arguments look like.
Yeah.
And for a while, I would have couples come into my sessions. This is back when I was in San Diego, and they would say that they watched that show, and the men who were more violent would say that's just bogus. Men don't act like that. Like, even though they were seeing what a healthy argument would look like, how representing yourself as a man and dealing with your anger and dealing with your chosen partner that you want to respect too simultaneously, how to do that. It was hard without what you're talking about, learning to get to neutral. And so it's almost like it has to come in a lot of different informational ways. You can't just change. You have to see it. You have to hear it. Maybe you have to read it. You have to think about it. You have to plan it. It's a lot of elements to change behavior that's gotten kind of rooted, possibly from, like you were talking about earlier, the ACE. And I'll see if I can find something online for podcast listeners. You can look at our links on Facebook about ACE, so people can read about finding. I think you can take that test on your own. I don't think you need to go to a therapist to.
It's online. It is online. Yeah.
To find out if you have past trauma and if how you're living is somewhat trauma informed.
Right.
Then.
That's exactly right. And you may have already talked about how the ACE questionnaire was developed.
No, we haven't, but that's probably a good show.
That'd be a whole show on the ACE. Tony Porter has a YouTube thing that I like to play in group. It's called the Man Box. And so part of what I heard you talking about, Annette, is that one of the things we have to recognize is, what does it look like to be a man that is soft, slow, low, compassionate? And some guys will challenge me and say, "Oh, you're just trying to turn us into women. You're trying to make us weak." And
Right.
I say, no, that tells me that you have a really distorted view of what men are supposed to be like. Think about the word husband. Do you know what husband means? It means the caring of a household. It's the nurturing. It's the animal husbandry. You take care of the animal. You're caring for the family. That's what husbandry is about. It's not about domination, that power over. It's about cooperation. For me, I like to talk about the domination model: God, man, women, children, animals, plants, and rocks. And it's an either or, either my way or the highway.
Right.
And in relationships, I like to have the image of, you're doing a podcast. Let's see, what's
Infinity.
The
infinity
yeah.
symbol.
It's a symbol of giving and receiving and moving back and forth, the energy with that. And so it's a both and. And this goes with our parenting. I remember one time I was driving to North Carolina with my family for a vacation, and I'm listening to the best music of the 60s. And my son said, "I don't want to listen to that." And what did I say? What I learned from my father? Well, when you get old enough to have your own car, you can listen to your own music. But right now,
right.
You know,
So much for husbandry
all
there.
the time.
that's right. That's right. So that was the power over. You know, I've got the golden rule. You know the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. And so he said, "That's not the way we make decisions in our family, Dad." And I got whiplash from turning my head so fast. What? I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "We make a decision that will fit for all of us." Where did he learn that? Okay.
Yeah, what kook taught him that?
I said, "Well, what do you suggest?" He said, "Well, we could take turns. You could listen to my music. We could listen to Mom's music, listen to Elizabeth's music, your music. We could take turns with that."
Right.
Oh, okay.
Cooperate.
So I learned about, I forgot the group that was in vogue at the time that I'd never heard of, and I ended up liking their music. And then we went to North Carolina. We bought this is how long ago it was, cassette tape of ghost stories. And so on the way back from North Carolina vacation, we listen to ghost stories.
Very
But
nice.
I was enriched by that rather than power over. We get each other's information and find a solution of what fits.
Mhm. You know, one other thing I want to just kind of talk about is a lot of times in couples therapy, or even I hear this with parents sometimes, it's, well, the only time my partner responds is if I get angry or if I'm yelling. You know, when I hear that with, you know, kids too sometimes, well, my kid never does anything until I yell at him, you know, and so just kind of curious is when you hear that in group or even with your couples, how do you, you know, what do you say to help them shift and think differently, you know?
Well, I'm reminded of a story when my son was about 6 or 7 years old, and I said to my wife, "Have you noticed that we have to tell Jonathan 3 or 4 times to do something before he'll do it?" She said, "Yeah, and it's getting worse." And of course, the more we tried to get him to do things and raise our voice, it would get worse. So I said, "I think we taught him that." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I think that we taught him that he waits to go to bed when we tell him the third time, our third time voice."
Right.
So that evening, I said to Jonathan, "Jonathan, time for bed now." "What? You didn't tell me." And I said I used my third time voice first.
Yeah.
And so then I watch my daughter with her kids, and she will say to them, "Okay, you got 5 more minutes for bedtime." And it's not clock time, 4 more minutes, 3 more minutes, 2 more minutes, 1 more minute. And then they go, I said, "Wow, how did that work?"
Why didn't I know that?
Wow, that's so cool. And so part of it is how look and see what part of the problem am I. Did I like the woman who was screaming at her husband and he was tuning her out and she was getting louder and he was tuning her out more? How can I speak in a way that you will hear me?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do to help you help me?
Mm-hmm.
Terrence Real says, anything that can be accomplished with harshness can be better accomplished with loving firmness.
Mm-hmm.
The way you're talking to me right now pushes me away, and I want to be close to you. But the way you're yelling at me, calling me names, threatening me, that's pushing me away.
Mm-hmm.
If your desire is to push me away, you're doing a good job. But I don't think that's what you want. That's certainly not what I want. But to be able to have that kind of conversation requires a whole lot, Annette, you're talking about. It's so multidimensional. It's not a two-way thing. It's so dimensional. Our family life, what we grew up with, who I am, how I see myself, how I view you. All of that is going on without our conscious awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, as you can see, you really probably can't learn it all in 29 weeks.
No.
And if you get over coming to your group, being court appointed maybe to go to your group, you can see how you can really change someone's life and how it can really make a difference to go for 29 weeks.
I have one guy who's going, he's now in his 150th week, and he's had to do 29 weeks, and he keeps on coming because he says it's very helpful to him.
It is. It's
Yeah.
it's very helpful to all of us. It's been helpful to have you here this morning. I know it's time for us to get close to wrapping up here.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. We all have to go on with our working days.
Well, my group is 90 minutes, so I'm geared for 90 minutes.
Oh.
Well, we really appreciate having you on the show, David, and bringing your knowledge about how to create, pathways to really help us cool off, calm down, and connect instead of push away and disconnect.
Yeah, connection.
Thank you so much for being here, David. And we want to remind all our listeners to check us out on Facebook, Instagram,
YouTube.
YouTube channel. Yay, Shrinks Chat. We appreciate everybody listening in today. Post questions on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll get back to you if you have any more. And we'll put some of David's links up too.
Yes. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.